Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Maya, and if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because today's story is one I've never shared publicly before. It's about the day that changed my entire life, my high school graduation. The day they all laughed at me for crying, but then something incredible happened that left everyone speechless. This is about how one moment of vulnerability became my greatest triumph. Let me take you back to June 12, 2019. Roosevelt High School graduation ceremony. I was 18, sitting in that uncomfortable folding chair in my cap and gown, surrounded by 300 other graduates and their families. Everyone was excited, taking selfies, talking about summer plans in college. But me? I was trying not to completely fall apart. See, most people assumed I was crying because I was sad to leave high school. They couldn't have been more wrong. I was crying because, for the first time in 4 years, I felt safe. For the first time in my life, I was about to be free. Let me explain what my high school experience was really like. While other kids were worried about prom dates and college applications, I was working 3 part-time jobs to help my mom pay rent. While they were at football games and parties, I was at home taking care of my 2 younger siblings because my mom was working double shifts at the hospital. My mom, Maria, had immigrated from Guatemala when I was 5 years old. She worked as a janitor at the hospital, cleaning floors and bathrooms for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. She barely spoke English, had no high school diploma, and was doing everything she could to keep us afloat after my father left when I was 10. I never told anyone at school about our situation. I was too embarrassed. While my classmates talked about their parents' careers and family vacations, I made excuses about why I couldn't hang out, why I couldn't join clubs, why I was always tired in class. The popular kids at school knew I was different, but they didn't know why. To them, I was just the quiet girl who wore the same 5 outfits on rotation, who never had money for lunch, who fell asleep in class sometimes. I became their favorite target. There was this group of girls led by Jessica Martinez, ironically, also Latina, but from a wealthy family. They would whisper about my worn-out shoes, laugh when I'd eat peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day, and make comments about how I smelled like cleaning supplies. They didn't know it was because I rushed to school after helping my mom clean office buildings at 5 a.m. The worst part wasn't even the bullying. It was the isolation. I had no friends, no support system at school, no one who understood what I was going through. Teachers saw my grades slipping and assumed I was lazy. Counselors suggested I wasn't college material. Even some of the Latino kids from middle-class families looked down on me. But I had a secret weapon. I was smart. Really smart. Despite everything, despite falling asleep in class, despite not having a quiet place to study at home, despite missing school to work or take care of my siblings when they were sick, I maintained a 3.8 GPA. I taught myself calculus from library books. I wrote essays on my phone during my breaks at McDonald's. And I had a dream. I wanted to be a doctor. Not just any doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician, to help kids like my little brother who had asthma but we couldn't always afford his medication. I wanted to be the person who understood what it felt like to choose between groceries and medicine. Senior year, I applied to 12 colleges. I wrote my essays about overcoming adversity, about being the first in my family to graduate high school, about wanting to serve underserved communities. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I spent hours at the library researching financial aid, filling out forms, writing application after application. But I told no one. Not my classmates, not my teachers, not even my mom. I was too afraid of being disappointed, too afraid of people laughing at my unrealistic dreams. The rejections started coming in March. We regret to inform you. While your application showed promise, unfortunately, we are unable to offer you admission. One after another, my dreams seemed to be crumbling. By May, I had been rejected by 11 schools. I was devastated. I started to believe what everyone had been telling me, that I wasn't good enough, that I should be realistic, that girls like me didn't become doctors. Then, 3 days before graduation, I got a call. It was from Dr. Jennifer Liu, the pre-med advisor at UCLA. She told me I had been accepted not just to UCLA, but to their special program for first-generation college students. And then she said something that made me collapse to my knees in our tiny kitchen. I had been awarded a full scholarship that would cover not just tuition, but room, board, and even a stipend for books and living expenses. I sobbed for an hour. 4 years of struggle, of humiliation, of feeling like I wasn't good enough, and suddenly a door had opened to everything I'd ever dreamed of. But I still didn't tell anyone. I was too overwhelmed, too scared it wasn't real. So there I was at graduation, trying to process that in 3 months I'd be at UCLA, starting my journey to becoming a doctor. The emotions were overwhelming: relief, joy, disbelief, gratitude. I couldn't stop the tears. And that's when I heard it. The snickering, the whispers. "Oh my God, Maya's crying again," Jessica said loudly enough for half our row to hear. "What's wrong now? Did McDonald's fire you?" Her friends started laughing. "Maybe she's sad because she has to get a real job now," another one chimed in. "My dad says she'll probably end up cleaning offices like her mom," someone else added. The laughter spread. Even some kids who had never bothered me before started giggling and pointing. Here I was, experiencing the most emotional moment of my life, and they were treating it like entertainment. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to run off that stage and never come back. But then something unexpected happened. Principal Davidson, who had been watching from the side of the stage, walked over to the podium. He tapped the microphone and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite one of our graduates to say a few words. Maya Rodriguez, would you please come to the microphone?" The entire auditorium went silent. I looked up at him in shock. This wasn't planned. This wasn't part of the program. I shook my head, but he was already walking over to me. "Maya," he said quietly, "I think it's time everyone knew what you've really been doing these past 4 years." I still don't know what gave Principal Davidson the idea to call me up there. Later, I found out that he had been watching me for years, noticing how I rushed to leave school, how I always looked tired, how I never participated in extracurriculars but somehow maintained excellent grades. He had put pieces together that no one else bothered to notice. Walking to that podium felt like the longest walk of my life. The auditorium was completely silent. I could see my mom in the audience, looking confused and worried. I could see Jessica and her friends smirking, probably expecting me to humiliate myself further. I stood at the microphone, my hands shaking, looking out at 300 graduates and their families. For a moment, I considered just saying, "Thank you," and walking away. But then I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up studying by the light of my phone because we couldn't afford a proper desk lamp. I thought about all the times I'd been laughed at, looked down on, dismissed. And I decided it was time to tell the truth. "Hi everyone," I started, my voice barely audible. "I'm Maya Rodriguez, and I know most of you probably don't know much about me. For 4 years, I've been pretty invisible here. But Principal Davidson asked me to speak, so I guess I'll tell you who I really am." I took a deep breath and continued. "I'm the girl who gets up at 4 a.m. to help her mom clean office buildings before school. I'm the girl who works at McDonald's every day after school and on weekends. I'm the girl who takes care of her 2 younger siblings while her mom works double shifts at the hospital. I'm the girl who has worn the same 5 outfits for 4 years because that's all we could afford." I could see people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The smirks were starting to fade. "I'm also the girl who taught herself calculus from library books. Who wrote her college essays on her phone during work breaks. Who maintained a 3.8 GPA while working 3 jobs. Who applied to 12 colleges and got rejected by 11 of them." My voice was getting stronger. "I'm the girl who cried today not because I'm sad to leave high school, but because 3 days ago, I found out I was accepted to UCLA with a full scholarship to study pre-med. I'm going to be a doctor." The auditorium erupted. Parents started clapping. Some of my classmates looked shocked. I could see my mom crying, finally understanding what I had been working toward all these years. But I wasn't done. "I know some of you have made fun of me. I know you've laughed at my clothes, my lunch, the way I smell sometimes after helping my mom clean. I know you've called me names and made jokes about my family. And you know what? That's okay. Because while you were laughing, I was learning. While you were partying, I was working. While you were taking your privilege for granted, I was fighting for my future." I looked directly at Jessica and her group. "Some of you assumed I would end up, just like my mom, like that would be something to be ashamed of. Let me tell you something about my mom. She left everything she knew to give her children a better life. She works harder than anyone I know, with dignity and pride. She taught me that respect is earned, not given. And if I end up half the woman she is, I'll consider myself lucky." The applause was getting louder. I could see teachers wiping their eyes. But the real reason I'm crying today is because I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every struggle, every rejection, every moment someone told me I wasn't good enough. Because it made me who I am. It gave me strength I didn't know I had. It taught me that your circumstances don't define your potential. I paused, looking out at the crowd. In 4 years, when I graduate from UCLA, I'll be Dr. Maya Rodriguez. And I'll remember every single person who believed in me, and every single person who didn't. Both groups taught me valuable lessons. I stepped back from the microphone, and the entire auditorium stood up. The standing ovation lasted for 3 minutes. People were crying, cheering, whistling. I looked at my mom, who was sobbing with pride, and at my little siblings, who were clapping even though they didn't fully understand what was happening. But the most satisfying moment was seeing Jessica and her friends. They weren't laughing anymore. They looked embarrassed, ashamed, maybe even a little impressed. Some of them were actually clapping. After the ceremony, something amazing happened. People started approaching me, classmates I'd never talked to, parents I'd never met, teachers who had barely noticed me. They were congratulating me, apologizing for not knowing my story, telling me they were proud of me. Mrs. Peterson, my English teacher, came up to me with tears in her eyes. "Maya, I had no idea. I'm so sorry if I ever made you feel like you weren't capable of greatness. What you've accomplished is extraordinary." Even some of the kids who had made fun of me came over. Not all of them, but a few. They looked genuinely sorry, and I could see that my speech had made them think about their own privilege and behavior. But the best part was watching my mom. She didn't speak much English, but she understood enough to know that her daughter had just told 300 people about her dreams and her achievements. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and she whispered in Spanish, "Mija, you are going to change the world." That night, my phone started blowing up with messages. People were sharing my story on social media. Local news stations wanted to interview me. The scholarship foundation that had funded my education reached out to ask if I'd be willing to speak to other underprivileged students. But the message that meant the most came from Dr. Liu at UCLA. She had somehow heard about my speech and wrote, "Maya, your speech has been shared with our entire pre-med department. We are honored to have you join our program, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish. You are exactly the kind of doctor this world needs." Jessica actually messaged me too. It was a long apology, explaining that she had been dealing with her own insecurities and had taken them out on me. She said my speech had made her realize how wrong she'd been, and she asked if we could start over. I appreciated the apology, though I wasn't ready for friendship just yet. Starting at UCLA was incredible. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who understood struggle, who appreciated hard work, who didn't judge me for my background. I thrived in ways I never thought possible. I'm now in my 3rd year of medical school, and I've maintained a 4.0 GPA. I've been published in 2 medical journals, I volunteer at free clinics in underserved communities, and I'm on track to match into pediatrics at a top hospital. But more importantly, I've become an advocate for first-generation college students. I speak at high schools, I mentor kids who are in situations similar to what I went through, and I've helped establish scholarship funds for underprivileged students. My little brother, who inspired my dream of becoming a pediatrician, is now a sophomore in high school with a 4.2 GPA. He wants to be an engineer. My sister is planning to be a teacher. My mom finally went back to school and got her GED. She's now a certified nursing assistant at the same hospital where she used to clean floors. Looking back, I realized that graduation day wasn't just about proving my doubters wrong. It was about finding my voice, claiming my worth, and refusing to let other people's limited vision of me become my reality. The kids who laughed at me that day taught me something valuable. People will always judge you based on what they can see. But your true power comes from what they can't see, your determination, your resilience, your refusal to give up on yourself. That's my story. Sometimes the people who underestimate you end up being your greatest motivation. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to speak your truth, you discover that your struggles were actually your strengths all along. If this story inspired you, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments about a time when you proved someone wrong. Have you ever been underestimated? How did you handle it? I love reading your stories, and your support means everything to me. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I share more stories about overcoming adversity and chasing your dreams every week. Remember, you are capable of so much more than anyone else's opinion of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.